Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's Katie for those who have for some reason forgotten, and this is Books R Us. First off, I want to say I know the glare on my glasses is really bad right now. I'm not sure why that's happening. Yeah, it's never happened before, hopefully, and hopefully it won't again. Again, not sure why because I have the same lighting as usual. But today I will be talking about my lowest rated books, so 1 or 2 stars on Goodreads that I have read this year. Last time I did my top 20 5-star books of the year, this time, and they didn't include picture books because I had a lot of 5 rated stars. This time I am including picture books because I really don't have a lot of 1 and 2 rated books. When I looked, I actually don't have any 1-star rated books. I'm not sure why. I really don't like giving books 1 stars or no stars. Again, these are in no particular order. They're just the 11 or so books that I have rated 2 stars over the course of the past year. So the first one is Mao 2 by Don DeLeo. I read this for a book club back, I want to say back in like February. I hadn't chosen that book, and I had joined the library in January, and there was a person before me who had chosen that book. And I kind of see why I didn't choose it because it was okay, but I definitely want to read it again. It was a little convoluted. It was a little confusing at points. It's about this journalist who wants to interview a author who's been like underground for the past few years and no one's heard from him. And so it follows her, it follows him, it follows his publisher who kind of knows where he is, and then it follows like this random couple that I'm not sure how they fit in exactly. I'm like, I don't know how all of these guys fit. I don't know. It was really confusing. The next one is Hushabye Bunny by Nosy Crow. It's a board book that I read, I believe, for Storytime back in January. I'm not sure why I rated this 2 stars, honestly, because I honestly don't remember it because it was a board book back in January. But I think it's just about a bunny who is trying to get their kid to sleep. A lot of my lower rated ones are more of the board books, honestly. Like, some of them are good. Some of them I rated 3 stars or higher. But this one specifically, again, I'm not sure why I rated it because it was a while ago I read it. Anyways, going on. The next one that's 2 stars is Mr. Monkey by Francine Prose. Again, another book club book that I didn't choose. It follows the story of a production of a show called Mr. Monkey. I don't think this show actually exists. Yeah, I think they just made up that title for the show for this book. And it follows like different cast members throughout the course of a few weeks. So one chapter will be a specific person, the next will be their co-worker or co-actor, the next will be the producer, the next will be like a grandfather of one of the kids in the production. So it kind of follows those lines, and that way I kind of liked it, but at the same time it was just kind of like it was a good storyline. Like, I could understand doing that kind of thing because like, no, the next chapter just continues on from the last chapter. So like, say I would like do something in the chapter. Say I was one of the characters, I would do something, and then like over the course of a day, and then the next chapter, whoever that might be, would be at the end of the day, and then continue from there. And it was kind of like none of them really did things similarly, so they didn't really overlap at all. So that was kind of confusing. So that's kind of why I didn't give it a high rating on Goodreads. The next book I have is a picture book I read for Storytime. It's called I Used to Be a Fish by Tom Sullivan. Now, I was doing a story time on fish, and so I put this book on hold at the library. I glanced through it, saw it wasn't that long, it wasn't too hard to read, but didn't really read through it. I think the thing that threw me was that I was reading it at story time with like one or two kids in front of me because that's all I got at that story time. And I realized it was an evolution book, which fine, it's an evolution book. Like that part I'm fine with. It's just like I think it was more of what I was expecting. Like I was expecting like he wished that he wasn't the fish anymore and he wasn't, but then he found out that he would actually loved being a fish and wished that he was a fish again. That's what I was expecting. So that's why I rated it so low, is because basically my own personal expectations for the book. And I didn't read it beforehand. That's why. The next one I have here is a poetry book called The Cold War by Kathleen Ossip, Ossip. This is again a poetry book. I'm not the biggest fan of poetry. Some poetry I really like. There are a few poetry collections that I've read this year that I've rated 3, 4, 5 stars. But I'm not sure. Again, this I read back in April for Poetry Month. I'm not sure why I rated it so low. Besides of how it was written. For me, it's a lot of like poetry. It's hit or miss for me. Is like mainly because of how it's written. That's basically it. The next one I have is Fish Eyes, a book you can count on by Lois Ehlert. Another picture book, another storytime book. I've read quite a few counting books because it says it's a counting book. And I read this in August. So since reading it, I think I moved it from a 3 down to a 2 because of the other counting books I've read since then for kids. And although it's good, it's not up to par with the rest of them I've read. It sounds really odd, I know. But I think I've rated some of Ehlert's other books fairly high, 3, 4, possibly 5 stars. So maybe that makes up for it. I don't know. So the next one I have is titled For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide / When the Rainbow Is Enough by, I'm going to butcher this name, so I'm sorry, Nitosaki Shang. So this is kind of like poetry / play. It's performance-based poetry, basically. So this was originally written for like a community group or a college group, and they performed it, but it was written like poetry, which is kind of why I rated it low, because I'm not used to reading that stuff. Maybe I just need to read more of it to really appreciate it. But as of right now, I'm not a huge fan of that writing style. Cool concept, interesting, topic. But again, it was the writing style. A lot of these is writing style, honestly. The next one I have is My First Yoga Class by Alyssa San Capuchilli. If I pronounce the last name wrong, I'm sorry. I feel like I'm saying that a lot in these videos. And I don't do my research of what their names actually are. Anyways, this is an easy reader. It's a very, very short chapter book I did for story time because we're talking about yoga. Again, I rated this low because although I liked the yoga aspect, it's not usually my style. Even for story times, I usually choose other types of styles. But I think it was a good, it was a decent introduction to yoga. But again, not my writing style. I think it could have been tweaked just a little. The next one I have is Daron Goes to Nursery School by Ifeoma Oniofulu. Again, picture book I did for story time. Very basic, like, this is Daron. He is going to nursery school. His mother makes his clothes. You have to realize that a lot of these picture books, there's a reason they're 2 stars. Like, I don't mind picture books, you know, but when it's like, I like the longer picture books with more words on a page ish, you know, to an extent. But when there's like one sentence on the page and it's so like, this is very like realistic and like, this is him, this is what he does, I'm not a fan of that. Which kind of goes into the next one, Lots of Kisses by Lorna Kreuzer. It's a board book, and it's just like parents kissing their kids when they're sick, when they're going to bed, all of this stuff. Again, don't mind picture books at all, but it has to be the right one for me. Now, the last one on my list is The Bible of Clay by Julia Navarro. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before, maybe, possibly, but in any case, I rated it very low. It's a 2 stars, and there's a reason for this. So it's kind of like a riff on all of the Robert Langdon books by Dan Brown, because there's this archaeologist who goes to, I want to say Egypt or thereabouts, Iran, Iraq, Middle East, and finds something. Her grandfather, back in World War II, had seen something over there, like, that he wanted to pursue but never got around to. So she, the granddaughter, goes out and wants to find this thing, and the Bible of Clay. And so it's dealing with that, and there's like, I want to say like 10 perspectives, and they don't always like keep to their own chapters, which is really, really freaking annoying, because like, I don't mind if you mix like perspectives, but just let me know you're switching perspectives type thing. Oh, also, there is another timeline going on. Well, there's like 3 timelines going on. Not only is it her timeline, it's also her grandfather's timeline. It's also, like way back when, biblical times, and Abraham's timeline. And it's going on with that and going off of like what happened and like how this Bible of Clay came about. And again, it was really good. I mean, the ideas were really good. It's just, I was really frustrated with how it was written, and it was just like really really, really confusing for me to figure out like which timeline we were on, even though it was said in the chapter titles. Sometimes it got like confusing, and then I wasn't sure how everyone connected. Like, there was like 2 groups of people. No, there was like three or 4 groups of people that you had to keep track of, because they're all after whatever the main character is digging up. And it's just like, oh my gosh, can you just relax it? Like, take out like 2 groups. That's it. Or 1 group. Take out like a group or 2. And that's it. I mean, really? That's all you have to do. What's funny about that book was actually, I had started it a while ago, and then never finished. And when I went back to read it, I'm like, I feel like I've read this before. And then I got about like a quarter of the way through, and I'm like, I don't recognize this now. But then by the time I finished, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's why. That's why I didn't read this in the first place, or finish this in the first place. So that's the 11 books I've rated very low this year. If you have any ideas of what I should rate higher, let me know, and I can give it a consideration. What books have you guys rated low this year? Let me know in the comments below. I hope to see you all guys later. Bye.